Today we're going to talk about war and hyperinflation in France. And if you like this video, please hit the thumbs up. And of course, if you haven't yet, please subscribe. And don't forget to ring the bell. And so we start off the war and hyperinflation in France. Well, France has had a long and tumultuous history as one of the greater powers in Europe for the last 1,000 years or so. But the part that I'm going to cover is the 20th century. 2 world wars and the consequences to the coinage, and a little hyperinflation thrown in for good measure. At the beginning of the 20th century, France and Britain had been sworn enemies for hundreds of years. But they found a common enemy, the newly formed German Empire. Britain and France signed a treaty of friendship in 1904, which turned into one of the most significant changes in political alliances. And of course, as you probably know, it had very far-reaching effects for the next 50 years, especially for France. Now, the coinage at the beginning of the 20th century was very similar to the US or Canada. It consisted of the 1 centime, which is, there it is right there. There's an eagle symbol on one side. And this is one from the 19th century, in fact. So it's got Emperor Napoleon III on the back. But the beginning of the 20th century, they also were this size with a similar pattern. So this 1 centime wasn't used an awful lot, apparently. And there was also a 2 centime. Sorry, don't have one of those. Would love to have one, though. The 5 centimes, on the other hand, is a very beautiful coin with a portrait of the French version of the American Lady Liberty. Now, in this case, this lady is her name is Marianne. There's her profile picture of her there, and on the other side, she's watching over some children. This coin, by the way, you notice how shiny it is, but it's only in very fine condition. It's not uncirculated. It's shiny because it got polished. Please don't do that to a collectible coin. Do not polish a coin. Now, in 1917, a new version of the 5 centime was released. There it is. And it was made of cupro-nickel, alloy of copper and nickel, instead of bronze. And it had a hole in it, which likely helped prevent confusion with the similar size 50 centimes. The 10 centimes followed a very similar history with, let's see, there's the early 20th century version. Again, it is a Marianne with the children, same as the 5. And her portrait on the other. This is a well-worn and has a very dark patina, so the picture may not show up particularly well on this one. Still, it is a nice coin. And of course, 1920, after World War I, it got the hole in it here. The one difference from it and the 5 centime, though, is that when World War I came along, it was changed to zinc, which is what this one here is. Yeah, this one is a fairly oxidized zinc coin. The next denomination is the 25 centime. So there's 1903. So the first design that was used in the 20th century, and there's Marianne again. And then the design was later changed. We got on the left side of that coin, there's the Vasquez. Americans might recognize that as being on the reverse of the American Mercury dimes. And there's Marianne. And so, after World War I, the design changed, again with a hole in it. And the 25 centime ended in 1940. Now, another denomination, though, that I don't have is the 20 centime. It was struck only from 1941 to 1946, all in zinc, except for an experiment with iron in 1944. The zinc ones can be had for as little as $1. But the 1944 iron version starts at about $25. And as I say, I don't have one. Love to have one. So, why was the 20 centime struck only during World War II? Well, this is a good time to go on a tangent. Every country has inflation, though very few had it as bad as Brazil. Please see my earlier video on Brazil and hyperinflation for more information about that. Inflation in France wasn't too bad in the early 20th century until World War I came along. Oh, there's that bloody war again, no pun intended. When the war ended, so did the 1 and 2 centime, with the last one struck in 1920. The 5 centime continued until 1939, when inflation forced its removal. But here is something that my Canadian and American friends need to know if they believe that Canada and the US should get rid of both the 1 cent and the 5 cent. Rounding everything to the nearest 10 cents means that the 25 cents, or quarter, would also have to be removed and possibly replaced with a 20-cent coin. This is what happened in France in 1941. But it did not last long. The end of World War II marked the end of the 10 centime, the 20, and the 50. The 50 centime started the 20th century as silver. There it is there. This one's in nice shiny condition. And it has a picture on it. It's a woman sowing seeds in a field, though it is in some ways it might be Marianne. I'm not sure if that was intended to be the figure of Marianne. But some of you may take a look at that and notice, gee, that looks very similar to the American Walking Liberty $50. So World War I came along, and it led to, of course, the removal of silver, and we replaced it with aluminum bronze design, like this one here, with a allegorical design showing Mercury. This is the real Mercury. That's not Lady Liberty with a winged helmet. It is in fact intending to be Mercury, and it represents industry and commerce. The design changed again in 1931 to a bust of Marianne, there she is, and 2 cornucopia on the reverse. There, and you can see them there with the 50 in between. With the invasion of Germany in 1941, the design stayed the same, but changed to aluminum. So as you can see, same design, different metal. Also, France split into 2 entities, resulting in 2 styles of coin. This is one style here for the northern part of France, including Paris, and it was occupied by the Germans. The other part, in the southern part of France, was known as the Vichy regime, and occupied most of the south. It had a different coin design. Here it is here. Instead of Marianne, we got a what would you call it? A battle axe is what you would call this design here. Insert mother-in-law joke here if you want. And on the reverse, we get 50 centime. So that was the Vichy regime in France, named after the hot spring resort town of Vichy, where the government was set up. The franc had a similar history to the 50 centime, except it managed to last until 1958. So there it is in silver at the beginning of the 20th century. Whoops, upside down. There is Marianne, or the lady sewer, again. And here is Mercury, again, in the 1920s. And then we have the 1930s, the aluminum bronze 2 cornucopia design, and Marianne on the other side. And then the aluminum. There's the Vichy. There's that battle axe again. And then we have the was designed for the northern part of France. And down, and then we continue on then with the 2 franc. Same story with the 2 francs. Sorry, don't have any early 20th century silver 2 francs, but here's one from the 20s, post World War I, with the again the Mercury design and the 2 cornucopia design, and of course the 2 designs for the north and also for the Vichy regime. The 5 franc was not used at the beginning of the 20th century until 1933. Before that, they were large silver coins about the size of an American silver dollar and were used in the 1870s. Don't have the early nickel or copper nickel ones in the 1930s, but I do have a wartime aluminum 5 franc. This is the only old 5 franc example that I have. Again, this is wartime aluminum. This is for the northern part of France, not the Vichy regime. And so the post-war inflation, though, soon made the 1, 2, and 5 franc practically worthless. And heading into the 1950s, the 10 franc was the popular denomination. So, how bad was the inflation in France in the 20th century? Of course, not as bad as Brazil, but the 10 franc was gold. Originally, at the beginning of the 20th century, nope, don't have one of those. And it was gold until 1914, and it changed to silver. And I do have the silver one. There it is there. Not so shiny, but pretty nice design. There's Marianne again. And that was up until 1939. Then it changed to copper nickel until 1949. And finally, an aluminum bronze coin until 1958, when the money reform was instituted. 20 franc had the same history, again, leading up to the aluminum bronze design here. Oh, and there's the portrait of Marianne on this one. Now, the 50 and the 100 franc didn't even bother with a silver version. They started as gold, but there was no silver versions, probably due to low demand. But in the 1950s, we had a 20 franc in the aluminum bronze, and we had a 50 franc was introduced in the 50s, and a 100 franc coin. Now, the 100 franc, during the 20th century, the 100 franc started as a coin containing 29 grams of gold. And by the 1950s, 100 francs coin was down to 6 grams of copper nickel, which is what this coin consists of. So, in 1960, with Charles de Gaulle, the great war hero, now president, the coinage was reformed, with the 1 old franc now equal to 1 new centime. And there it is, right there. That's the new one, introduced in the early 60s. This one's in 1966. And you'll notice it is made out of stainless steel. Now, where have I seen stainless steel coins before? Now, the new 5 centime also started as stainless steel. There is one there. But for whatever reason, it was replaced with aluminum bronze in 1966. And there's what it would have looked like. It looked like there. And again, portrait of Marianne. There she is. The way it's designed, though, it looks like her hair is blown back as if she's riding a motorcycle without a helmet. But interesting design, though. The 10, 20, and 50 centime were also aluminum bronze, but of course different sizes. Designs were almost exactly the same too. Same portrait of Marianne on one side. So there's the 20. Oh no, sorry, this is the 10, not the 20. Same design. There's the 20, bit bigger. Now, just going over them actually, the 5 was 17 millimeters. The 10 centime is 20 millimeters. The 20 centime was 23.5 millimeters in diameter. And the 50 centime was 25 millimeters in diameter. There appeared to be a problem with the 50 though. The 10 being 3 millimeters larger than the 5, no confusion there. The 20 being 3.5 millimeters larger than the 10, no confusion there. But the 50 centime was only 1.5 millimeters larger than the 20 centime. Yeah, too close in size, exact same design. Yeah, there was going to be a lot of confusion between those denominations. And so I'm guessing there must have been, because not too long, in fact in 1965, the half franc or 50 centime was changed to a nickel coin. Same size and same design as the silver early 20th century version. And there's the lady, the lady sowing the field. And the 1, 2, and 5 franc use the same designs, with the 5 originally in silver but changed to nickel in 1970. This is a nickel version of the 1 franc from 1960. And this is a nickel version of the 2 franc from 1979. And the 5, here's our 5 franc. Again, that one is nickel. It's pretty shiny, but that in fact is nickel. And again, very similar design. So the different, but good size, fairly good size difference, among other things that help prevent confusion between them, even though the designs were similar. And finally, of course, we have the 10 franc, which first appeared in 1974, at least for circulating. Here's an example of what one of those would have looked like. And with a map of France on the other side. And the design changed a few times. Here's a later design, and hard to make out the style on here, but there it is. And there is a stylized Marianne design on the back, and a bimetallic version, which appeared in a little bit later. And again, we have a winged character. I'm going to guess that this is a Mercury character in this case. Perhaps, yeah, although he has a torch in one hand. And I say it's bimetallic, meaning, of course, it's made from 2 metals. You'll notice the center metal is different from the outer one. The center is nickel. The outer ring is aluminum bronze. You put the 2 pieces in the machine, you strike it hard enough, and you get the 2 pieces to stay stuck together. And there you go. This is one of the clever ways used nowadays to differentiate different coins, is making them bimetallic. So, all the coins I've shown you today are reasonably priced, of course. And now you can easily find them, and you have some history behind them as well. So if you have any questions, please post in the comments, and if you have any suggestions for any other economical collectible coins, please let me know. I just might have it in my collection. So thank you very much for watching.